Well, let's get this party started, y'all. I appreciate you joining Tyler and I on this Thursday evening. It's probably frigid cold where every single one of us is. I don't know about you, Tyler. Is it cold where you are right now? No.
I'm in Arizona, so I think it's
Don't even tell me
um,
how nice it is.
75 degrees, but yes, cooler than normal. It's not 120.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super excited that you guys are joining us this evening and just to talk about mindset and to really hone in on why that's such a key piece of your journey. We've been talking about it in the Facebook group all week. We've been, talking about it multiple different times throughout the year, but I think that as we come into the first of the year and we start to get towards the end of quarter one or the beginning of the next month, it's really important to reiterate what that looks like for you and then ultimately how you can harness that power as an athlete, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur in different senses, as a mom, dad, wife, husband, whoever. Right, mindset is so important. And so without further ado, I want to introduce our guest that we have this evening. And Tyler, I'd love if you share just a little bit about your background. You can share how we met, and we can just go from there. So
Y- Yeah, absolutely. Just want to thank everybody for sitting in on the call and letting me, uh, yap for the
mhm.
next 30 minutes to an hour. A little bit about myself. My background is in collegiate strength conditioning, upper wellness. I was with Mayo Clinic for a long time, Lifetime Fitness, so a lot of the big, I guess, fitness brands that you can think of. I first started personal training when I was 18. So I've been doing it for quite a while now. I've since moving out of more of like the corporate wellness, strength conditioning setting, moved into fitness consulting. So I guess kind of a easy way to look at it is I help build out either luxury home gyms or if you're a studio startup and you're looking to build out, I do anything from the CAD design layouts, 3D layouts, to all of the ancillary products, getting business owners hooked up with products to sell and generate revenue in their fitness facility. So that's a little bit about my background.
For those of you guys that don't know, Tyler and I met in biology class at the University of Wisconsin La Crosse. We were both there, and I sat next to him, and I was like, "Your note taking is atrocious. Like you're using an entire page for like one slide. We've got to figure this out." And I guess we just became friends after that, and just stayed friends over. I don't know. Like I went off to grad school. You did your thing. Now you're in Arizona. Like I'm in Alabama. It's crazy, but
Mhm.
we maintained that passion for health and fitness. And you guys, Tyler's being incredibly humble. The gyms he builds are absolutely gorgeous, like gorgeous, gorgeous. I will link like your resources if that's okay, Tyler, just so they can check it
Yeah,
out because the gyms
absolutely.
are state of the art. They're the most gorgeous spaces I've ever seen. And in the future, like we're already manifesting it out there that Tyler will build our future Invictus Core Gym. And so just really cool to have someone who's in a very different part of like the health and fitness space, but very much understands like what we do on a daily basis and has been there and walked the walk. So again, for those of you guys that are just joining us, what we're talking about tonight is mindset, and then specifically how journaling can help you and like channel that inner mindset. And so I think that it's important to talk about mindset as it pertains, Tyler, to the athlete, right? And I have a lot of pushback when I talk to my clients about being an athlete, and they're like, I'm not an athlete. I'm like, well, do you pay attention to what you put in your body? Do you drink water regularly? Do you exercise? Like, that sounds pretty athletic to me. And so, what would you say, like, with working with all the athletes that you have, like, why is mindset one of the most important things, but also maybe one of like the most overlooked things as well?
Yeah, I think the definitely in athletics, just the same thing in the general population. I think a lot of people weren't aware of, or there was some stigma around mindset and really like counseling, things like that. And I think the further, we've gone along is, we've been really able to dig into the neuroscience behind it, and just how mindset affects the performance of the athlete, not only the performance of the athlete, but, the mental well-being and the ability to create balance, and, kind of shape their core beliefs about themselves really outside of the sport. So for us, I think a big part of why mindset's so important to coaching athletes and really anyone is, The core ones would be building grit and resilience. Grit would be that intersection of, passion for what you do, and the goal you want to achieve. And then, the persistence that it takes, right? Because robot blocks are going to come up along the way. We all like to think, and I'm sure you guys don't know this on your fitness journey too, right? We all like to think it's a linear path. From the moment you meet with Kelsey to the point you get to that point B, which is goal achievement. And, life has a way of showing you that that's not reality. And, building grit in that is, really having the resilience to encounter roadblocks, encounter setbacks, and really be able to move forward. So, if you've ever watched a sporting game, right, you think someone's down, they're down 28 points, they're down, and people come back. So it's obviously really big in the athletic population, but it really applies to all of us, whether you're talking personal, you're talking business, life. Um, you have to be able to have grit and passion for what you do because it's going to be the thing that drives you forward and make sure when things come up, you don't quit, no fence sitting, you keep going in pursuit of that goal, regardless of what comes up along the way.
Yeah. And so would you say that, I guess, what is one of the number one ways you help teach your athletes to have that grit? Because I do believe that some of grit is innate, but I also do think that some of
Mhm.
it absolutely can be taught. So what were some of the things that you guys used to do to really pull that out of the athlete to find that grit in those situations?
I think it's a little bit of, having conversations with the athlete around their core beliefs about themselves. Something that might look like is, okay, you're in a good spot now, right? They might come in and meet with one of our counselors or mental conditioning coaches. You're in a good spot now, right? You're performing well. You're maybe at the highest level of your sport and what you do, but getting people to think about their life in a broader context, just outside of the sport, I think that's really where we've found where it's really meaningful and helpful to the people that we're working with, which is just what are you going to do if you get injured? And in sports, and I'm sure you know this too, Kelsey, in your experience, it's not whether or not someone's going to get injured, but when. But really talking through some of those roadblocks before they happen. So that's one piece. I would say another thing too is, when we would work with student athletes, talking to them and opening the conversation about what are you going to do after, right? So I just heard a really great interview with Danica Patrick, and they were talking about, what allowed you to make that seamless transition out of sport into business and really out of that role as an athlete. And now I'm Danica Patrick, the civilian and business owner. She really talked about that. It was journaling that she did, a lot of introspection. So we use a lot of journaling with athletes, not just emotional states, but also just kind of thinking ahead and accounting for things that may come up so that when you do encounter them, they aren't going to crush your core sense of belief in yourself and what you do and what you're about. So we find that that's really kind of a powerful tool is number one, opening the conversation, as their coach. But then secondly, having them go inward and really ask themselves, do I have balance in my life? What do I plan to do when these things inevitably come up? That's kind of the biggest ways we apply it.
I think that's so important too, because, we're all so goal oriented and setting X goal. And a lot of the times, I mean, and some of my clients are on this call, we'll have a conversation of, okay, so we have a 15-pound weight loss goal. And halfway through it, I'll be like, so what happens by the date that we've set if we don't get there? What changes about the work? And the answer is nothing. Right. The pursuit
Mhm.
is still the same. If we don't get there in the time frame that we're initially thinking, like we don't change the course of action. We stay there until we hit it. And it might take a little bit longer, but I think that that's so important because so many people naturally are so fearful of failure, but failure on a
Mhm.
fitness journey largely is actually the only way that you make progress. And
Yeah.
it's so important too, like you said, to think about those situations because a lot of the times I will have, people who go home for Christmas or over the holidays or they go on a vacation and I'm like, make a notes list in your phone of all the things that went really well and the things that you were super prepared for and things you want to do differently next time. Because I can guarantee when 2 months go by and you have another trip that comes up, you're not going to remember all those things. So like, how are you prepared and whatnot? But it's so important to take those things and prepare for them before they come, because that's what catches a lot of people off guard is the, anticipation of being like, I didn't expect to be here. And so you'd said something that was really important with journaling. I would love for you, because I look up to you so much with the amount of journaling that you do and how you said you've done it, every single morning for the last countless amount of years. What initially got you into that? And how would you debunk that like journaling isn't the same as like a diary entry necessarily, but how do you break up, I guess, that stigma that's maybe associated with it? And how did you find it for your own life?
Yeah, I think a lot of it started was, you know, I, I have ADHD and I have a very busy mind. And, that's a superpower for me in certain settings. It definitely was in sports. I can get hyper focused on things and dial in. And you give me a task, I'm a very task-oriented guy and I can get it done. But it's also something that's kind of a curse in a way too, because you're constantly thinking 10 steps ahead of everything. And for me to be able to kind of quiet my mind and allow myself to focus on the task at hand, not what I'm going to be doing in 5 years from now, but what I need to be doing today. What is going to move the dial today for me to get where I want to go 5 years from now, and kind of reverse engineering my goals. That's really how I got into journaling. It was more of like a thing to, man, I have such a busy mind. And I'm sure like anyone listening on this call, like when you think about goal achievement and what you want to do and all it takes, there's so many variables, right? Mindset, movement, nutrition, recovery. I got to eat a lot of protein. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to, you're getting introduced to recovery modalities. You're like, what do I focus on? And I think that's where journaling comes in, is it's allowing you to sort out your thoughts and then put one foot in front of the other. What's first things first. Um, you can certainly approach it in a bunch of different ways. I know Kelsey's going to share some of the resources that she has, just some simple journal prompts. But I think the other thing too is just not getting bogged down in thinking this just has to be me going over how my day went. It can be your goals. And it doesn't have to just be your fitness goals. It can be your personal goals. It could be, hey, I want to be better in my relationship. I want to bring more to the table and be more present in that. I want to, I want to be a better friend. I want to call my family more. So you're able to kind of switch up the prompts and you can really take it in whatever direction you want. And it doesn't have to be super structured. But I do think it helps because, we're talking about grit for one, right? When things happen, do you push forward or are you resilient? Do you keep moving forward? Are you anchored in your sense of self and belief of what you're trying to do to keep going? Having journal entries from 5 years ago, I mean, I'm not saying that it feels like a weird thing to say, but I've been doing it every year because it allows me to go back and be like, man, I thought this was such a life-changing, crushing event. I was ready to quit. I was calling my grandma saying, I don't want to do this anymore. And then I read it, a year later in retrospect, a few months later in retrospect, and I go, oh man, I'm already way past that. So it allows you to kind of, the way that Kelsey might have you track resistance levels with your weights, or how many walks am I getting in my steps, those major KPIs that move you in the right direction toward your goals. That's where I see the tool of journaling coming in, is just giving you a refresher on where you started, where you're headed, and how much you've already accomplished and overcome to be where you are today. Because it's a powerful thing.
I love that. And I think that just as much as we're looking forward, reflection is so incredibly important as well. And that's what I'm very big about on things with clients of what do we have now that's working knowledge that once was not working knowledge? And
Yeah,
it's very similar to you saying, 5 years ago, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is the end. Like I just can't do it anymore. To the equivalent to that with clients is like, well, guess what? A year ago, you didn't know what foods contained protein. And now you're
yeah.
hitting a goal of, 160 grams a day or whatever it may be. That wasn't working knowledge. And because you actively were in pursuit of it every single day, it now is working knowledge. And I think that's also the beautiful thing about journaling. Of course, if you're consistent with it, is you can look at, yeah, hey, what things, didn't I used to not have any idea about? And now it's like, I'm living my dream. Like I'm sure Modus at one point was a journal entry for you. And now it's your career.
Motives. Yeah, I mean, to speak to that, it was a journal entry. It was a sketch on a piece of paper. And, I think that is a powerful thing, right? Is like you're always trying to get somewhere else. You accomplish your goal and then it's on to the next. But, sometimes I do go back and I look at that first little sketch drawing I have of a room, that I took the measurements with a tape measurer, not even a laser. I'm looking at my renders that I made on rogue.com on their gym builder versus now I'm using AutoCAD and Revit, and we're making custom branded equipment and these beautiful facilities. But I mean, yeah, it all starts with just putting pen to paper. I really encourage people that are doing journaling to it documents some really major life events, because you're going to want that stuff. Like what I'm talking about right now is like you're working with the right person. Kelsey gets you to your goals. You got to do the work, right? This isn't a passive thing. Um, but you're going to want those journal entries when you get where you want to go, because it's going to mean a lot.
I love that. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Shout out.
But I also think it's so important too that just know that, if you're not vibing with a journal prompt or just because you saw, an influencer share it on TikTok or Instagram, like it's fine. You can write about nearly anything. And a
Mhm.
great place to start, and you would probably agree with this, Tyler, or change this if it's not something that you agree with. But I think that just gratitude for starters is so important. Just if you don't every day consciously think about what you're grateful for, it's incredibly difficult to see the blessings that life has to offer you and the good things that come your way from that. And so, if you don't know where to start, that's a fantastic place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say practicing daily gratitude. And it's weird because I think there's all these buzzwords and activities, under the mindset umbrella. And, some of it can be like foo-foo. That's not something I want to do. But I think, for you to truly appreciate where you're going, you have to know where you are now. And it does. I mean, it's just like journaling. You have to take some physical inventory of your blessings and whatever you would call it, the opportunities that you have in front of you. It's good to shoot in the direction of a goal, but again, going back to that course, sense of belief and who you are and what you're about is, you better find ways to be grateful for where you are today, because if you remove where you want to be physically, um, there's still plenty to be happy about right now, right where you are. So, that's going to be one of the journal, one of the resources that Kelsey shares with you as well, is just going through a gratitude list and going, hey, what's going good? I'm frustrated at times of, what my health and fitness journey might look like, but I have a really great family that supports me. I have a spouse that supports me. I have all of these opportunities. I have a great coach in front of me that can, show me the ropes and get me where I need to go. I'm not helpless, right? Like be where you are, be present. I think that's a buzzword too, being present, being mindful. But yeah, take physical inventory, write them down, take some time, and then spend a little bit of time, saying why. Like, I'm grateful for these things. Why are you grateful for these things? And I think that's a powerful tool in keeping you grounded and anchored, to what you're trying to accomplish along the
Yeah.
way.
And speaking of those resources, real quick, you guys, I just want to show you what we're talking about here. So Tyler so graciously shared these with us, and I reworked them for like the Invictus core branding. But All of you guys will receive this PDF afterwards. So you can keep it, you can print it off, like whatever it may be. But this is kind of what we're talking about, right? So making a list of things that in which you are thankful for and, really honing in and picking like one item to you that stands out the most. And, a great exercise is over the next 60 seconds, come up with as many reasons that you can think for why you are thankful for that. And then, reflect on how those things make you feel. And I think a really powerful parallel to this is think about all the people in the California wildfires that literally lost everything, their houses, their cars, their, sentimental belongings. But what are these people grateful for? They're grateful for another day. They're grateful for the sun coming up. They're grateful they still have their family. They have their pets. Like at the core of it, like, why do those things mean so much? And then it helps us realize that, the material things don't mean as much. And so I think that those like perspectives are really important to gather as well. But this is what the gratitude list looks like that we'll give you guys after the call as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's kind of speaking off your point too, is I always laugh because I think I use humor to deal with a lot of things that have happened, unfortunately, in my life. But so I try not to do comparative suffering in one way, but in the other way, it's we had that the other day at the club where we made a corporate wellness deal with this woman's husband. Over the phone, we had left some of the corporate packet for them to pick up for their business, and the sweetest lady in the world. From what I've heard, her husband was just a rock star, really good dude, and he never showed up to pick up his packet. And I had worked with this guy, on just obviously getting his employees set up, taking care of the health of his employees. But yeah, he never showed up because he got in a car accident on the way. So it's weird. It's life's a very fragile thing, and I don't think we take time. I've been very lucky in my life a lot of time to have like healthy family members, things like that. But yeah, I mean, at any moment's notice, those things can be taken from you pretty quick, and it's good to have um, something to ground you where you are now.
Of course, yeah. And so I think that all of us can, grasp that gratitude so important. So I think that was just important to mention right away of like, hey, if you don't know where to start, this is a fantastic place to start. And the document, Tyler, that you and I have been talking about and kind of working through, I would love to segue into how you view decisional balance. And I'll share the graphic here in a second, but I would love for you to talk about that as it pertains to what are the advantages and disadvantages in life of like taking action and not taking action, right? Because a journaling entry could also be like a pros cons list too.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to talk about that and kind of how I guess like I get that prompt came to be and what one might find from that.
Yeah, I think, what we would always talk to our athletes about and clients is, behavior upgrades, right? So your behaviors, your habits, your actions, again, going back to your core sense of belief, who you are, cleaning up the dissonance that exists. Um, this is who I am as a person, but I'm doing these things that are conflicting with who I really am and who I believe I am. So for us, to help make sense of that dissonance, I would always sit down with a client and go, listen, the biology of humans will tell you, and some people are built different than others, right? But is we try to take the path of least resistance. And unfortunately, in the world that we live in, or fortunately, right? It's a great thing as well. Um, we don't have to do a lot of the things that we used to do as people, right? We're not foraging for food and plants and things like that. We go to a grocery store, we go to a fast food store. We're always going to take the path of least resistance, at least initially, until we really understand our decisional making process and why we may want to do one thing over the other, even when it goes against what we're trying to achieve, right? So, one of the biggest things we would do is sit down and go, okay, let's keep it real here. Like, my thing is not to be peppy coach, we can do it. There's never going to be any setbacks. There's some clear advantages and disadvantages to taking action and not taking action. So, one of the things would be like, hey, say I get my protein in, say I get my workouts in, I get my steps in, advantages, right? I'm going to feel good. I'm moving in the direction of my goals. I'm feeling better. I'm looking better. My spouse is noticing. I'm more confident in the workplace. I'm going to ask for that raise, right? Things like that. But with that is you're always making a trade-off. Even not making a decision is a decision, right? So deciding not to go to the gym, deciding not to get ahead of things and prep your meals in advance or outsource that, right? Um, so it's good to go over those too, because you're not a bad person for not making the decision because there's some clear advantages to not doing it, right? Which is I don't have to work as hard. I can just eat whatever I want. I don't have to think about my decisions. I don't have to plan. I don't have to invest time. I can continue eating Chick-fil-A every day. Shout out Chick-fil-A for the rest of my life, not just every once in a while when you get the itch. But it's important to talk through the advantages of both taking action and not taking action because I think it allows you to understand yourself better as a human being. And then when you're running into roadblocks, you're going, I'm not weird for feeling this way. Maybe we're crazy for liking this stuff and we're just driven to do it because our love for it. But most people, I don't expect you to love working out and doing these things. And there's a lot of clear advantages to not doing it.
I think that's it's so important to recognize that. And Nick Saban, our former football coach here, he has a quote that says, "Discipline is both doing what you're supposed to do when you don't want to, and not doing what you want to do when you know you aren't supposed to." And
Mhm.
that's so true. People only view the first part of that quote of like, yeah, it's doing things like I don't want to do. It's also not doing things you want to do, like when you shouldn't do them. And so I will share this document, you guys, that we're kind of pulling these things from, of just a really great overview with this decisional balance worksheet of what happens when you take no action. That's what Tyler was speaking to, the advantages of, I don't have to put effort in. I can react how I want or have whatever attitude I want. I don't have to care, etc. But then the disadvantages of that are the endless cycle of being frustrated and having that tension, being overwhelmed, underprepared, whatever it may be, right? Whereas then we look on the contrary of taking action and what those very short term, uncomfortable decisions will lead you to a much longer term of happiness, of health, of wealth, of insert whatever. And so in this PDF, we'll give you this little guideline, but then I also made a blank page for you to write that down as well. And it could be as simple as, like Tyler said, what if I don't hit my protein goal? Or what if I do hit my protein goal? Or like, how is that going to be if I take no action to do that? How will I feel versus taking action to do that? Or what if I finally sign up for that group fitness class that my friend's been bugging me about to go with her to, It could be anything here, but I think that it's a really different way of looking at a pros cons list when you think about the behavior that you will endure or how you'll feel about it. And ultimately, then the long term from that too is, am I dealing with, forever regret or temporary uncomfortable feelings? So I think this is a really great this worksheet for you to realize too, that it's not just about like yes or no, should I or shouldn't I, but like how are you going to feel at the core of it if you do it or if you don't do it?
Yeah, when we were using this with athletes, the biggest thing that you'll uncover in this document too is maybe some of the things that you're afraid of. And it may be a little tough to uncover, but you may figure out that it may be easier not to care and not try than it is to care and try and fail a couple times along the way. If you take anything away from this mindset call, it's good to care. And it'd be like being in a relationship. It's the same thing as like you can either be closed off, you can't open yourself up, you don't fully invest yourself in something, and it doesn't work out, or you could fully do it with the risk of it may not work out. It may change over time. It may look different than what you thought it would, but at least you had the stones, I would say. I don't know if that's PC to try because a lot of people won't do that.
That's very, very important. Is I like how you said it's cool to care and it's really important to care
It's
and
very cool to
actually
care.
give a crap about it because we're talking about your life, you guys. This is, you got one shot at this. You got one go at it. So why wouldn't you, invest so much time into your personal development and becoming the most grit-filled person that you can be, and just somebody who undoubtedly attacks their goals with all the tenacity in the world? Like, why would you sell yourself short and not do that? And so, but it's okay and it's human and it's normal to not have that be your initial reaction, to have a little bit of pushback. And that's what I tell my clients a lot of times. I'm like, I would be worried if you weren't feeling a little bit anxious or a little bit scared about this jump that we're about to make, because that tells me you probably had a lot of trauma previously, that you're just used to these things. But change is the only thing that remains constant for us, and we have to be open to that. And whether that looks like, again, that temporary discomfort or that forever regret of not pursuing that, is super important. And I think that one more thing, Tyler, I want to go over on this PDF with you because I think it's an
Yeah.
incredible thing to focus on. Is I would love for you to educate about the pause, identify, and reframing our mindset, because we've all heard of, counteract a negative thought with positive thought. But this pause, identify, reframe is a little bit different, where you actually can physically write out the steps that you're going to take for action to change that.
Yeah, I would give a shout out to this resource to a coach I love very dearly. He passed away of cancer, I think 6 years now. His name's Trevor Moad. He was the mental conditioning coach for Russell Wilson. I was lucky enough to meet him a couple times at IMG Academy. He's a wonderful human being, but he wrote a book, Getting to Neutral. And it talks about um, observing your experiences versus always just constantly reacting. Oh my God, this happened. This means it's bad. This happened. I have to react in this way, instead of taking a moment to pause and really take inventory about what's going on in your life, how you're feeling the situation, and then really how to best approach it too, because you don't want to, and I'm sure you guys know this, right? I am a human being, as I'm sure all of you are as well. I'm sure there's been some times where something happens and you overreact and you think it's way worse than it is. And again, this is the power of journaling, right? Oh my God, my life's falling apart. It's not, right? You will push through, you will use your grit to get through it. Um, but you have to identify what's going on. It's you have to identify the situation in a neutral manner. So yeah, the first step of that process is going, okay, without bringing any bias into this situation, what's going on? Okay, so say you set a goal for 3 months from now and you don't hit it. Okay, so that is what's happening. You did not hit your goal. Okay, now before you have some sort of emotional reaction to it, can I pause, right? Can I pause and before I react? And then can I reframe it? So I think a little bit about of like what that would look like is identifying the situation. Kelsey will kind of show you in here. There's the physiological responses. That's the, clammed up, heavy breathing. Discomfort in the body. You can feel your heart racing. You're like, oh my God, this is terrible. And then the psychological things, right? Like your fear of what's going to happen next, the uncertainty, the anxiety involved in it. You might be really angry or frustrated. But again, we're pausing and we're identifying before we make any sort of decision out of it. This one I really like too, and maybe we can go into this a little bit more depth another time, or I can send you some resources, is having something that anchors you to your goal and your sense of self. Now, I've seen some people do that with bands with, personal sayings on it. Some people do that with vision boards of what they want to accomplish. Some people will write mantras or a mission statement to do that. But you need something to kind of ground you in what's going on before you make a decision, right? So, something bad happens. I'm going to look at my mission statement. Okay, well, I don't do these things, so I don't care what happened. Mission goes on as planned, right? Or an image, right? Like you may have a picture of your children up in your home workout space. I'm not just doing this for me. This is affecting something bigger than myself. And I have to keep myself anchored in that fact because if I don't do it for me, at least I'm doing it for someone else, right? And everybody's different, right? Um, and the other thing too, like I said, a little quick statement, snap and reset, right? Something happened today, an event happened today, but just because something bad happened doesn't mean it's a bad day. Snap the band and reset and move forward. So that's a little bit about what that would look like. And really just when you pause from the situation, identifying what you're seeing, and then make sure you're giving yourself enough time to reframe the situation as a challenge and a barrier to overcome, not a life-ending moment. So that's a little bit about what that would look like too.
I think that's super important to for all of us to sit back and be able to do this of, the identify the stressor, pause, but like what's anchoring us to these goals? Why are these goals so important? Like we can have these emotions, but why are the goals so important? And then how do we reframe it on the back end and make a choice? So how can we take action? How can we approach it? How can we think differently about it? And sometimes it's okay that it's that elementary that we have to walk ourselves through it that way because emotion is it's always going to be there, but we make anytime we make decisions out of emotion, it's usually not the best one for us. So being able to remove that emotion, I think, is huge. And this pause, identify, reframe will really break down, am I being, emotional about this in a positive way, or are my emotions getting the best of me? And how do I need to kind of rework this situation? So, like I said, all of you guys will, you'll receive this document as soon as we're done with the call and I get the recording uploaded. But we wanted to show you that, Tyler took some amazing time to provide us with resources where you can actually take these and implement them into your journal tomorrow. And there's a whole bunch of journal prompts in there too, and you can branch off of it. But we didn't just want to give you like, just gratitude, which it's not
Yeah.
just gratitude, it's so important, but we wanted to give you like, hey, here's quite a few different things that you can do that if you haven't tried these, it's worth it to try them.
And I would say something to that too, Kelsey, and I'm sure you've noticed this in coaching. Kelsey's clients, I'm sure you've noticed this meeting with her. Really good coaches do it. Um, most of the time, we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught something new. So I think some of the things that we take for granted, like tracking food, oh, I know what I'm eating, I know what I know what I'm lifting. You have to take inventory. And that's kind of the thing with, a gratitude list or pausing, identifying situations, reframing them, making decisional balance worksheets, things like that, is it seems simple. It's not easy, right? Because we've all sat down with our friend or family member who can constantly tell you what they need to change to finally become the person they need to be and get where they need to go. Unfortunately, and I'm sure you guys all know people and with love, right? With love to them, right? They aren't making the conscious decision past awareness to do something about it. And I think that's the power of reflection and actually sitting down and going, just like I would work out and refine movement patterns, just like I would sit down with my meal plan and plan out my grocery shopping list and refine that. You have to sit down and take a physical inventory, pen to paper, type it out of where you're at because it's going to shape everything about what you do afterwards because before you take any action, you're in your mind first.
That's huge. I appreciate that so much, Tyler. Thank you for your time and thank you for sharing all the knowledge that you have. And hopefully everyone on this call and everyone watching the recording has a very different mindset around journaling and what it can be for you and how the most successful people out there do it. They write it down, they talk about their thoughts, they just get them out of their heads too, especially like Tyler said initially, like I'm ADHD, I gotta focus on something, right? I gotta dump some of this out. And that can be a really positive thing too. And so if you're searching for those answers, this could be a really great tool for you to get to those answers. And so in kind of like wrapping that up, Tyler, before we open it to Q&A, do you have anything else like about journaling you'd like to add, or I guess anything else about your experience of doing it over like the last 5 years?
Just do it. Dan John, who I've had on my podcast, I've been lucky enough to have him, fitness legend. He always talks about do this. Um, these calls are cool, right? I'm sure you feel this way when you meet with clients. It's great to talk shop, but it's all about application. So I would say if I really say one thing to really this whole conversation and really the purpose of me coming on here and sharing this and Kelsey being, a gracious host in this is you have to go do it now. We can talk about it. You can go talk about it with your friends, but if you really want to accomplish great things, it's all that behind the scenes stuff. It's all the stuff that people don't see that where you spend time working on yourself. Not even in some of the things you may not even feel comfortable sharing with other people. You have to find a way to work through those things. You have to find a way to come up with a course of action to address them. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong. You're human. Life is good. But if you're not creating action and you're not taking action on these things, then this conversation is fruitless. So I would just say that the big takeaway is, make sure you go do things. Again, Kelsey could tell you to go eat protein. If you don't break out the damn, scale or use hand portions and get in the grocery aisle and get your hands dirty and do it, we're pontificating and it's useless knowledge that's not being applied.
Yeah. I appreciate that as a just such a good takeaway that like you have to go apply yourself. You have to take action in all different areas. And a reminder too is that the work comes before the belief for yourself, for the people around you. It always is. And the work has to come before the belief is going to be there. But one day you're going to wake up and you're going to realize, okay, like I've been doing pretty good so far. And the only way that you get there is by taking that action. And so I appreciate you
Action.
sharing all that. Oh, go ahead,
Well,
Tyler.
yeah, and and action, people, it precedes motivation. Okay. So it comes
Yeah.
before it. Why don't I want to go to the gym? Because you're not very good at it yet.
Yeah.
But that's a growth mindset, right? Is knowing that if I learn more, if I try harder, and I keep showing up every time there's a barrier and I move past it, you're going to feel motivated. You're going to see the changes mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all the lees, right? And then, yeah, you're going to feel better about showing up. So that's my TED talk on that, I guess.
I appreciate that. And I wanted to give you guys a little bit of time. I know we went over just a little bit, but for such good reasons. This is a conversation I booked for an hour and I wanted it to be that. So for those of you guys who are attending, what questions do you have for Tyler? It could be, about his career and how he manifested a drawing on a piece of paper to building these incredible state-of-the-art facilities, or it could just be like, hey, how do you come up with journal prompts? Like, what do you do? Where do you find them? So anybody that has any questions, I'd love to leave it open for a little bit of conversation. Don't be shy. You can unmute or you can put it in the chat.
Logan, I see you in there, brother.
um Josh said, plug your business in case someone's looking. I shared it in the chat above, Josh, but I'll share it again for Tyler. Tyler might be a really great resource for you in the future, Josh. I'm just gonna put that out there right now. Well, I guess I'll ask that question of, oh, Logan put a question in the chat. I can hear him yelling from the other room. What was your biggest obstacle life provided you that was difficult at the time, but you're so grateful for now?
You know what? We're being open, and I think if I don't share some deeper things, then how the hell would I expect you to? I would say, and there really doesn't need. I've had a lot of time to process these things. I think I lost some pretty important people in my life pretty early on. My father being one. My best friend growing up. Those are things where I look back in retrospect, and I didn't really handle them the way that I would have liked. So that was an obstacle, kind of understanding and dealing with grief and things like that. But out of that obstacle, I would say is like I've gained, and really the journaling piece was really therapeutic for me in those situations. Um, I would say it makes me really appreciate my time with people. It allows me to really be present with the people in front of me. And it has really been a great chopping block for what I invest my time in. These days, if I align with someone and it's good and I love what they do, and similar to this, right? I'm showing up. And I'm going to be there for that time. And it's going to be me and you and whoever's in there. Um, but if it's not, it's a really good decision, right? Decisional balance thing for me, to not do it at all, because I think that's kind of what I gained out of it was, just appreciating the people in front of me, and life's, without being quite, life's a gift and we're lucky to be here. And, you should take it seriously.
I appreciate you sharing that because I know, I mean, I remember meeting you like that was a really difficult thing that you were, working through and all of that. And like Logan said, the vulnerability
You
doesn't go.
drink a lot,
Yeah.
you know, right? Like all the unhealthy ways of healing and things like that. But it's good. I mean, that's what I'm saying. If you're in that spot, I'm not saying it's alcohol, maybe food, right? Like I
Mhm.
can't get myself out of it. Keep going. You're fine. I have a drink every once in a while now. There's a way to grow and move past really anything that happens, and um you're going to be better for it. People, and that's why I like doing these things too, is not even putting myself on a pedestal, is like sharing your experiences. And Logan, I appreciate the comment, like your willingness to be vulnerable, it will help other people do the same thing.
Yeah, always. And so like I guess with vulnerability and with those different things of finding out like, you're processing through a lot. Do you feel like for journaling you just kind of free flow of like whatever comes to you? Or is it like, I've got those prompts that we have in the PDF, I go looking for prompts, or is it just kind of like, hey, what do I feel like I need to get off my chest today or like get out of my mind today?
We live in a whole new world today, right? So, ChatGPT is a valuable tool. I would say if there's some things that you want to dig into and you maybe don't know how to open that conversation with yourself, prompt it. I had these life experiences. I'd like to dig into it. Can you make me some journal prompts? Bing, bing, bing. That's a powerful tool. But yeah, I would allow yourself to be free flowing, because again, going back to the ADHD mindset, the squirrel thing, um, it you have to let yourself brain dump a little bit sometimes. Sometimes you're gonna read back on your journal entries and go like, man, holy smoke, like what was I even talking about? It doesn't even make any sense. You're upset, you're angry, you're anxious about something. You'll even see too, if you use a pen and paper, look at the way you write. You're gonna like almost get kind of like you're gonna be in a time machine of your emotional state, right? Like am I slow? Am I being but it's good. I mean, I would say that, being able to look back on that stuff now is a powerful thing. So
Yeah.
you do allow yourself to, it's just you and you. You're not reporting this to anyone. It doesn't need to look perfect. You don't need to have everything figured out in the first journal entry. Please don't sit there until you do. You know, mental health professionals are good people to know, with, again, with love, but yeah, you may not tease everything apart the first time you put it to paper, but it's just another perspective, and it's a starting point to open the conversation.
Yeah, I like that. And a big thing that I am really open about in like our coaching journey, especially with our clients, is a big question I ask them is, do your efforts match your expectations? That's a really tough
Hmm.
question to answer, but I think that could be
Preach.
journaled as well. Like, okay, what are the efforts I'm putting in? And are those things matching my expectation? And it's, you could make the taking action versus not taking action with that prompt as well and see like, am I tracking my food 7 days a week? Am I, going out crazy on the weekends? Like, what does that look like? But I think that that's powerful and can connect to any area in your life too, of truly the efforts I'm putting in, do those match my expectations?
Yeah, and that's the whole thing, everyone listening, about a growth mindset, right? It's the effort you're putting in. It's what, your dedication to learning and then your persistence, right? So I think those three things is they shape your ability to achieve a goal
Yeah.
or really to understand contextually where you are now. So, if you're journaling and you're going like to what Kelsey said, my effort is not matching my expectations. You don't have to tell her. And I think that's why journaling is important too, is sometimes we get defensive about our inaction. And it's not a good conversation to have with another person, right? You almost feel kind of targeted. You feel singled out. But if it's you and you, like, what are you going to argue with yourself? So it's just like, hey, my effort's not matching my expectations right now, and I need to bump it up and get after it. Same thing with learning. It's like, wow, I don't know anything about protein. Did you open any of the resources that Kelsey sent you? Have you done extra research, right? I mean, the best NFL players, we're talking athletes. Um, I don't think practice ended or film session ended when they shut the facility down. They're still doing it. You want to be great at something, just know what it takes. And then persistence, like again, am I going to get the door slammed? Talking about my business, am I going to lose projects in the beginning because I don't know what I'm doing? Am I going to mess things up along the way and wish I did it differently? Yeah. Does that have anything to do with me being persistent in the pursuit of my goals? Absolutely not.
I think that's incredibly important. And I want to reiterate too, I love that you said like, and you don't have to tell me about it, you don't have to tell anybody about it, right? But every single person who has had success in their life had that hard conversation. They maybe didn't know it was called the does my effort match my expectations? But every single one of them came to that fork in the road of like, hey, my effort either is or it's not. Like there's not an in
You're
between.
in or you're out, referencing Saban, right? You're
Yeah,
in or you're out.
exactly. You are. And so it's okay to write that down and like slam the book closed and be frustrated about it. But what I want to encourage you all to do too is just have a separate place for those thoughts as well. Like I have one right here on my desk. Just have a separate place for it that the only thing that goes in there is those thoughts. Like I don't put it on my written calendar or in like, sometimes in this notebook or on this piece of paper, this sticky note, like just one place that you can just keep it with you. And I think that's important too. Lindsay has a really good question in the chat. She said, do you ever struggle with impatience within your journey to success? If so, do you have any advice? I feel like I struggle a lot with patience in the pursuit of my goals.
Oh man. You know what? All the time. It's weird because I think we have to simultaneously be really hard on ourselves in a loving way, but also have patience, right? Because you're not going to white knuckle your way to where you're going. I mean, we learned this. I mean, I don't know what people in this chat know about sprinting qualities and things like that, or lifting really, really heavy weight for singles and doubles. But you know what? Doing more reps or going harder and training more doesn't get you there. So I think that's the thing with is you can't white knuckle your way to where you want to go. And again, I just think, I struggle with it all the time, right? Like I wanted to have this facility that I'm doing in February done yesterday and in October, right? But, your goals are intersecting with a lot of other people's lives and their decision-making process and things like that. And obviously that's frustrating, but you have to learn, and this may be another cool resource to send. You have to recognize your sphere of control. There are things that you have all control over, there are things that you have a little control over, and there's things that you have no control over. I think that's a powerful activity to do in itself to go, the only person I control is me and my behavior and how I respond to things and my effort level and my persistence, my grit, where I'm going. All these other things I don't. And I think that robs us of our happiness a lot of the time because we want it to happen right now. It doesn't work that way. And I think the best thing you can do is ground yourself in what you're grateful right now, to anchor you to get you where you want to eventually be. Because if not, when you hit that goal, you're never going to allow yourself to be happy. You won't, because it'll be the new goal. And if you're going to wait for yourself to achieve a goal to be happy, is like you're not understanding your basic sense of self and what it is to be human, and that you deserve to be happy regardless of goal achievement. It's just one piece of who you are.
Yeah. I love that. And I put this in the chat, but this is something that the most recent bout of 75 hard that I did in the fall taught me, that you've got to have aggressive pursuit, but with aggressive patience. Like you have to have both of those, of like
Love it.
continuing to go at it and to show up and to be there, but you've also have to exercise so much of that delayed gratification and that that aggressive patience. And something I think that's important too, Tyler, that you're speaking to, that I've reminded a lot of people of, is you have to prepare for what you pray for. So if you're journaling about all these things and you're trying to manifest all these things, you also need to be doing the inner work to prepare for when those things become abundant in your life. And you also have to remember too that the days you're living right now are likely once the days you also prayed for as well. And that's very important to look at gratitude too. Like there's one time I thought I was never going to finish grad school. I was never going to be a practicing doctor. Well, here I am 3 years later, and that's
There
my
you go.
every day, so that's so important. And I just I appreciate you bringing up the patience with it. And Lindsay, I'm grateful for your question too, because I think it sparks good conversation. So
Yeah, thank you. It was a great question.
yeah.
Yeah, we all struggle with it. It's weird. You see us front facing when she's coaching you or when I'm giving a talk. Just know, and when it's behind the scenes, everybody is trying to be better.
Yeah,
Everybody thinks they should be doing better, they should be further along in life, but there's a lot to be happy about right now. And sometimes when you're not at your goal or things didn't happen the way you want, we're talking about the spiritual aspect of things. Maybe you weren't ready yet. Maybe you weren't in that position in your life where you could invest that type of time or energy into it. And or even opportunities. I had that with a couple of my first projects. They just didn't go through. I thought I did a really good job, thought it was ready to go. And, it just kind of showed me like, oh yeah, it still happened, but I just wasn't ready yet. And that's a good thing, because if you're looking at it in a spiritual context, is like, you know, you're not going to be given things that you can't do, right?
absolutely. So important to remember. Any other questions that we have before we jump off? Otherwise, if you guys end up having questions after the fact, I can always send them to Tyler and I'll get an answer for you too.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, if there's not any other ones, I just want to extend my gratitude to you again, Tyler. I know you're busy and I appreciate you taking the time for our community. And I'm excited to get the recording out and all these resources. And thank you for just, for leaving our community better. It means a lot. So hopefully this isn't the last time this year that you guys see us do a call. We already talked about potentially doing a follow-up one, but it just means a lot. So thank you again. And just grateful for you and your resources. And I will make sure that everybody has a way to get a hold of you if they have any more questions.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, Kelsey. And I'm going to leave you guys with this. Listen to Kelsey. That's it. That's all I got to say. She's a fantastic coach. She taught me how to not be a psychotic studier and how to take education seriously. So you've had a really big impact on my life, how I approach learning, and ultimately my ability to complete college and have the opportunities I have today. So I really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for that. And again, listen to her. She knows her stuff. And she has a good heart and she's looking out for you guys. So appreciate your time, and yeah, hope to do this again soon.
Likewise, I appreciate you and hope you all have a fantastic rest of your evening and we'll catch up next week. See ya.